So we are in practice, maybe 8 or 9, I'm not for sure where we're at. Doing very well. The only issue we've had injury-wise was with one of the Green twins had a wrist. We'll know more about it later as we move along, who's not practicing with us. Other than that, we're doing really well from that standpoint. Little fatigue starts to set in the last 3 or 4 practices, and it'll be that way over the next 3 or 4 until we get to a point where school starts and they get on a schedule that's not as demanding physically as this one is, where they're here 12 hours a day. But coaching's going well. The defensive side with Coach Mason is I'm very pleased with. Obviously, offensively, we're in the same role that we have been. So guys are competing, improving. We've got a long ways to go, but I like where we're at this point.
When you talk about the fatigue, is it pretty common to hit that this time of year?
Yeah, once they get into practice 3, 4, 5, they train all summer, but the heat wears on them. Now they're carrying pads, the physical contact, getting up at 6 in the morning, staying here till 7:30 at night, just the long wear and tear. We do as much as we can to prepare them for that, but it's not the same. And so they're just going through a normal protocol, for lack of a better term, of what it would be for preparation for the season.
You've been in pads, but you still probably aren't taking running backs to the ground. How well are you determining how guys can break tackles, how good they are in traffic? Because you got to get a pretty good grade on those running backs.
We're not going to the ground. We will. We'll go to the ground 3 times before the first week of the game. They're learning. They still get a chance to make guys miss in space. The defensive guys will try to thud them and rip the ball out. So we're getting a little bit of a simulation of a game, but certainly not like what we want. I don't think that it's possible for us to practice that way. We're just trying to get as much as we can at this point to see where they're at and to prepare them for the physical contact that they'll get in the first game.
How hard is it to know how much to do and to do enough but not put guys in danger, things like that?
Well, I've done this a long time now, so that's one thing that I've got a pretty good feel for. And I watch most practices from up top, and I look for different things that give me an indication of where we're at physically, from a fatigue standpoint, if they need time off, if we need to push them harder. And that's something you just learn over a period of time. For me, I can only speak for myself, and I can watch the group, and I get a pretty good feel for where we're at. But as I've said before, that's the most challenging part of coaching, in my opinion, is to put them in a position that they can play fast, they're in good condition, and be physical, but not do so much that it sets them back. So hopefully, between myself and Coach Glass and the science with all the technology we have in their shoulder pads and such, where we can track their bodies, hopefully it's working for our team now.
I was listening to Sirius yesterday, and Rick Neuheisel commented, happy birthday to Mike Gundy. Mm-hmm. And he said, let me tell you something. I don't know what it is around the country. I don't know what it is with the media. He said, people don't talk enough about what a run this guy's been on. This guy's on one of the great runs in college coaching. How does that make you feel with a guy like Neuheisel?
Well, Rick's a good guy, and I thought you were going to say he played a song for me with his guitar, but...
No, but they kept playing your singlet audio.
Oh, yeah?
Because they say that's maybe more iconic than the rant, is the singlet audio.
We're in a little bit of a hidden area here, We're tucked away in north central Oklahoma, and we're in a town of population about 50,000 people, and so we can stay hidden a little bit, which I think is good for us. As we know, none of that matters. The only thing that matters is our preparation and the teams we put on the field, the way our guys play. Preseason polls, rankings, so on and so forth. That's all fun for the fans and for the media and for Vegas, obviously. But none of that really matters. I just enjoy what I do, and I'm fortunate to be here doing it for a long time.
When Thomas Harper enrolled early, whenever that was, however many years ago, you kind of singled him out as a guy that was impressing you as an early enrollee freshman. How is he now that, it finally is his turn to be a starting safety?
The experience and the reps he's getting obviously make a big difference. We need his leadership in the back end. We had a couple, 3 guys that rolled out of those positions that he plays and has played. He's very competitive. He's very tough. He's become a part of our culture, following right after what his brother did. His brother stayed here and just persevered and just kept pushing and pushing, and now he's playing a little pro ball, and little Harper's doing the same thing. They're just really good kids that have a lot of discipline and structure instilled in them, and he continues to get better with the reps he's getting, which now is considerably more than he's gotten before.
Do you think he could kind of have a similar impact to Devin? I mean, obviously a different position, but Devin waited his turn and had such a big impact. I think Thomas
I would say there's a good chance of that, sure. There's just no substitute for experience. There's no substitute at any position for quality reps in practices and then in games. That gives those guys a chance to grow and mature, because we know when you get quality reps in good situations, you make mistakes. So that allows you to see your mistakes, correct them, put a plan in place to fix it, and then go out and make it better next time. That's the only way we learn how to play.
How do you feel about the progression of the linebackers?
They're doing good. We're going to start to pick up the pace contact-wise a little bit over the next 5 or 6 practices, 7 practices, because then we'll start to back off before the first game. I don't see any of those 4 or 5 guys that are rotating through there shying away from contact. But the next 4 to 6 practices will be important for them, because they're tired now, they're fatigued, they're beat up a little bit. So we'll see if they can push through it, because ultimately that's what we have to do in a game.
Obviously, a lot of talk about the defensive line, but one guy doesn't maybe get talked about it much, but I know he's gotten a lot of reps. Nathan Latu, what are your thoughts on what he's capable of?
Nathan has turned the corner a little bit in our culture, and he's a transfer that's been in the program long enough that he understands the demands of being successful at this level in all areas, on the field, off the field, socially, school-wise. There's just a great demand on those guys to make sure everything's in order so they can perform and keep their mind straight and keep it clean. And he's turned the corner, in my opinion, and I've told him that. I see him doing things now that he wasn't doing at this time last year. And so we call that maturity and growth, and I think he's finally moving in that direction.
What have you thought about the safeties overall? I mean, obviously guys that have a lot of reps in the past, but don't really have starting experience outside of Jason Taylor.
They fall in the same category as the linebackers, really. Defensively, the corners have had more work than those guys, the young corners, but other than the D-line, those other positions haven't had a lot of work. So we're trying to give that to them. We're trying to simulate as much as we can in practice to a game, but it's impossible. You go out there, you play, there's 58,000 or 60, however many people come to the games, and you're in a situation, your heart's beating fast and things are moving really quick. It's a different scenario than in practice, but they're pushing hard now, they're learning, they're attentive, they're taking coaching, and they're trying to play physical, which is a good start.
How do you simulate that? Is it turning the music up loud, yelling at them?
Well, we do that, we play loud music to, because it's loud in games, right? Distract them mentally, make sure they focused, and then play 11 on 11. We 50-ish snaps or so a day that we get of 11 on 11, which is like playing real football. That's the only way you can simulate it. So we go through practice and individual periods where we teach fundamentals and techniques, and then we go to our 7-on and our inside drills where we take a smaller group and simulate a game, and then we throw it all together with 11 on 11 and we play a game. That's the only way to simulate it. I'm pretty sure of that.
What do you think about the depth at cornerback? I know you have Jabbar and Corey who've been in games a little bit, but what about who's behind them, do you think?
Oh, those guys are young. They're a year behind where Jabbar and Corey are. Just they fall into the category of good young prospects that are further away just from understanding, but we try to give them, we give them a lot of full speed reps in 11 on 11 to simulate, as I said earlier, the best we can. But we don't really have an idea of where they're at until we get in a game and they have to rotate in. The same thing we did with Jabbar and Corey last year. We rotated them in early in the season, and we'd get a feel for where they were in games. And as the season went on, those guys played more, particularly even in the bowl, in the Fiesta Bowl, and played pretty good at that point.
I think
it's some of those plays Corey made on special teams last year. Do those special teams plays help him out on defense this year?
No doubt. We bring a lot of guys along in special teams because it's a 11 on 11 real game situation, and you have a responsibility. Special teams is a one-on-one battle. You either have to defeat your guy and make a tackle, or you have to block your guy to keep him from making a tackle. So those are great experience for those young players. Just like what you saw with, I don't know when it was, somebody sent me the clip of Malcolm Rodriguez. I don't know, was that yesterday or day before?
Last night.
Well, you see what he did. He's getting experience right now, and it's the same thing for this level.
Do you envision more rotating on the back end of your defense this year because you are dealing with some depth concerns and trying to build some depth? And
I don't know if we have the luxury of saying that right now. We'll have to start making those decisions. What is today, the 13th? Probably about the 25th. We'll have to start making decisions on what we're going to do rep-wise in practice, so that carries over to who's playing in the games. We're not really to that point yet because of just what we were talking about, that we have so many young players in those areas. We want to give them all we can now, and then we have to make a decision on who we think gives us the best chance to succeed in a rotation in a real game, and give them the majority of the reps as we bring the other guys along. Now, that can change some through the middle of the season, but we have to do the best we can to predict that here in probably 10 days or so.
Talking about distributing reps, how's the backup quarterback situation looked? Have you gotten a feel for those guys and maybe what you think?
You look just like that guy over there. I thought you moved. It's the same thing. They're getting a lot of reps, and I will tell you, those guys are coming along really good. I'm very pleased with where we're at. I feel much better about that now than I did in spring.
Those 50 reps in practice, 11 on 11, is that all ones, or do you mix some twos?
Ones, twos, threes. Yeah, ones, twos, threes. So, as you know, an offense is going to get about 80. Our offense is going to get about 80 reps a game. Our defense usually about 60 to 65, maybe to 70, sometimes less than last year. We played pretty good, so it was less than that. And when we go against each other, we have to do the math and figure out how many reps they're getting against each other, and almost like a pitcher, you put a pitch count on him early in the season when you start in April, and then May, and you can do a little more as you go. And so we're kind of keeping a pitch count on these guys from a play standpoint, so we don't overexert them. Then you have soft tissue injuries, hamstrings, groin muscles, hip flexors, things like that.
Inside 3 weeks, how soon do you start introducing some Central Michigan material?
We will have the luxury this year of practicing against each other more than we did in the past up to the first game, because there's similarities on both sides of the ball, and there is no, in my opinion, there is no substitute for full speed. We will do some of it in about 8 practices. We have about 8 practices more where we'll just go against each other. Then we'll start some of it, but we have the luxury of working against each other longer and deeper into camp, even when school starts, because of the similarities with the two teams.
Zaragoza. A question about Zeke. Zaragoza. Do you remember when you became aware of his story, what he went through as a child?
When he was going to walk on here, they made me aware of his childhood, with his illness and such. He's a great story. Great kid. Has come in here and he's done something that somebody said he couldn't do. And his willingness to push through and find a way to get it done is pretty cool. And it's neat that we have young men like that on our team. They're a good example of kind of what life's all about. And so he's been through a lot to get to where he is.
He's developed a bit of a platform, and he wants to use that.
I think that's awesome. We need as many young people as possible that can get on a platform like him and prove that sometimes we can do things people say we can't.
Where's the offensive line when you're trying to build that too deep with you?
Oh, they're good. I feel good about 7 guys. We've got a number of guys working in, but I think that we have 3 guards, 3 tackles, and 2 centers at least that are practicing now and performing well enough. As we progress them on, they'll be ready for the first game. And then the other guys, it's hard to tell where they'll be 2 weeks from now. Sometimes guys' lights come on really quick, and then sometimes maybe it's not for next week, and then practices like 14, 15 through 25, they get considerably better, and it changes a little. But I feel okay with where we're at.
How much do those guys get to go one-on-ones with your defensive line, and how much does that help them to
Which
face
guys?
your offensive line against
they're
your defensive
a
line?
bunch. We go against each other every day.
How much does that help?
Well, yeah,
their
that's the
progression?
only way they can learn. I mean, they're in hand-to-hand combat, and the only way the big guys can improve on both sides of the ball is going good against good. The half speed, as I call summer camp drill work, doesn't do those guys any good. You're just wasting time, in my opinion. Some people may benefit from it. I don't think our program does. So they go against each other a considerable amount of time in practices.
Your place kickers still
Good.
Still a
They're
good
doing
battle?
Yeah, we're just letting those guys kick. They're getting the same kicks every day. They're doing well.
Mike, what was your reaction to the news about your brother?
To the what?
To the news about your brother?
Well, it gave me enough information for a good chapter in my book whenever I retire.
Would you
That's what it
consider
did.
bringing him on staff at all?
Well, we hadn't even talked about that. He's got several other options right now that he's looking at, but I haven't talked to him about that.
The Guardian helmet covers are getting a little bit of buzz because some NFL guys are experiencing them for the first time. What's been the reaction from your players and just your experience with those in terms of
I think
benefits
they're-
and things like that?
I think they're very beneficial, and I think I think they work. They protect, and which is important for 2 reasons. 1, to try to protect our athletes. 2, it allows us to practice the best we can and still keep them safe. And I need to. We did some science on them, some research a year ago. That was enough for us to say they work and it's worth the time. And I need to get our guys to give me some more data and information on the collisions and how it's worked over the last year and a half or so. But I would almost be willing to bet that it's very beneficial and they work. I'm seeing them in high schools. I go watch Stillwater practice at nights and they're wearing them. And I can't imagine that it's not beneficial. The players get used to them. And we never had them, but I would think that it would be a mental. You'd feel good mentally knowing that you have that cushion